Oh, dude, this is stylish.
We did it!
Success.
With the Anacrusis now out and in early access, I can safely say that I have a new favorite Left 4 Dead inspired 4-player cooperative campaign-based infected shooter that was released within the last calendar year. The Anacrusis has one extremely important distinction from Back 4 Blood that makes it miles better. It's actually fun to play. Most of this review isn't going to be tearing apart Back 4 Blood, by the way, I already did that, but I will be comparing elements of the Anacrusis to Back 4 Blood and the Left 4 Dead franchise, just to highlight where it's different and where it's more of the same. One of my favorite aspects of playing through the Anacrusis for the first time was the world design. It takes place on a massive spaceship that acts as a sort of galactic cruise liner, and you can feel the size of it throughout the game. The first campaign has gorgeous vistas into the stars, huge rooms with high ceilings, and ends up showing just how a whole way of life might have taken place through the set of maps you play. A particular part of the first campaign leads you to a colossal park with extravagant hedges and a simulated sky. The opening to the area is breathtaking, and it helps nail down the atmosphere of an extremely advanced future where human constructions are this huge. Oh, legit, this is gonna look cool.
Whoa!
Woo!
Oh, fuck!
Oh, okay.
Dude, where are we?
I was trying to look at it, but...
Yeah, really, for real.
And despite this advanced technological future, the aesthetics of the Anacrusis go in the opposite direction, largely being a retro theme. The shape, layout, and design of every room brandishes the 70s style, which is something that pairs almost too well with the futuristic setting. The game looks vintage at every turn, but is filled with space aliens, laser weapons, and high-tech grenades, which is honestly a great pairing. I don't think I've ever seen this type of style used so well in a first-person shooter before. If any of you watching have ever visited Disney World in Florida and stayed at the Pop Century Resort, sections of it hold a very similar aesthetic. And I only mention this because having visited that resort, playing through the game left me with a constant reminder of Disney, and I find that kind of brilliant. Like Disney, the Anacrusis is supposedly a titan of the entertainment industry, where people could lounge on a sort of state-of-the-art vacation. Just having this in mind, the Anacrusis being a place designed for fun is engaging, as I found the setting disturbing due to this disaster, and throughout most of the campaign I could imagine myself on a pleasure cruise of the Anacrusis. I don't know if this feeling of extreme late-stage capitalism was intended, but the vibe of the desolate spaceship left me feeling like there was a bigger party who only saw this as a lost asset and nothing more. I'm melting them all! Oh, this special weapon is fun. I saw a lot of people saying the level design was too confusing for them, but I enjoyed the non-linear approach to the maps. The intended route wasn't exactly straightforward, but the general direction was usually my first or second choice, and most paths ended up actually leading to the same destination. That said, I would have enjoyed more character dialogue pointing players in the right direction, or reminding them of the goal in a natural way, as it was pretty easy to miss character interactions. Finally, I think it's important to say that I think some of the game is lacking in theatrics somewhat. There aren't many crescendo events triggered by the players, and I particularly didn't love the episode endings due to their abrupt conclusions. One of the best aspects of Left 4 Dead was the action-packed sprint to a helicopter, or the mad dash over a bridge after you finish off everything else. That sense of action did a great job tying the experience together, and the lack of it here makes it feel less fun to win.
Because of like the crosshair shape?
It goes in like a horizontal line.
How do we want to handle this patch?
Oh!
Careful,
Perk.
careful, they're getting angry.
One of my favorite aspects of the game was the randomly placed perk stations, which called on a crescendo in exchange for a very powerful gameplay buff. Comparatively to Back 4 Blood's roguelike perk deck idea, this one is actually random, and features a ton of perks which synergize with one another, making it feel both fun and more importantly natural to craft around a unique build. This sort of decision making is perfect for a 4-player co-op game. For example, during my first impressions, my friend John built a character around an upgrade which allowed him to provide temporary healing through goo grenades when teammates stood in them. Firstly, it's important to note that this was an entirely fluid, spontaneous gameplay choice. John didn't go into the game wanting to become a goo guy, he was offered it as one of his 3 perks and picked it, which led to a significant change in gameplay, conscious or otherwise. Secondly, this choice he made for himself ended up affecting the entire team. This choice led me to saving the goo grenades for him, so the value was maximized, but also helped my own perk selection. I found myself choosing extra grenade slots and a boost which made temporary health last longer, the health perk allowing me to gain a greater advantage from his goo grenades, and the grenade capacity boost helping me make up for the lost raw damage due to him only carrying sticky grenades. This, alongside the changing and branching paths of the map, are likely the biggest selling point of the Anacrusis at the time of writing besides the location and future mod support. In later runs, I shaped a build around having a super strong shield at my disposal, and further still one where I was almost always aimed down sights and constantly pinging special infected. As it stands, the Anacrusis only has 3 primary weapons: a fast-firing, high-capacity SMG, a medium-capacity and higher caliber pulse rifle, and a high-power, low-range shotgun. Despite this, I didn't ever get sick of the weapons catalog as a whole. I just found myself drifting between the 3 when I got bored of one. It would be dishonest of me to not suggest more weapon variants, however, and I was a little disappointed by the lack of a primary arsenal. The secondary situation is much worse, with there being no alternative to the starter pistol, but some perks slightly transform this gun into a pocket SMG, which I at least found interesting. Still, a secondary upgrade like the Magnum for Left 4 Dead or the much needed addition of melee weapons would go a long way in fleshing out the replayability and combat experience. In the future, one of the things I'd really like to see would be a high power over range DMR, as even while I played on day 1, I noticed a lot of fun perk combinations that would be better suited on a sniper than on the pulse rifle. On an unrelated note, I think they should also take a look at the way reloading works currently, as on longer reloading guns like the shotgun, you don't get any bullets until the clip is well removed from the weapon, which was extremely obnoxious in high tension moments. However, as good as some of the interactions were, the gunplay of the Anacrusis has some extremely annoying quirks that definitely should be reviewed. The most egregious of these is being that not only do the guns feel too light, but there is almost no visual feedback for doing damage other than when an alien is killed.
It probably is like a big, I mean, it seems kind of railgun-esque, right?
It seems like a stun gun to me.
Oh, fuck! Ah! No!
What the fuck? Did you just get like charged?
Oh, wait, I'm not hurting this guy.
Bro, me neither. Throwing a grenade. I missed.
Oh, I just got lag. Okay, wait, maybe there's lag that was stopping us from... Whatever, let's just get up here.
During the first playthrough of the first episode, I thought the bullet spread was broken because I seemingly wasn't doing damage with the pistol. This wasn't the case actually, and if you look closely I was hitting the enemies, but receiving no hit markers for regular damage had me thinking I wasn't hitting my target. In a similar vein, fighting brutes in the early game was terrifying, not because of their combat abilities, but the fact that you couldn't tell if you were hurting them. I don't really understand why hit markers or having the enemies punched back when shot wasn't implemented, due to the fact that the crosshair does show up in the current build, but only on killing an enemy. And finally, I wanted to mention that the weapon animations are fine as is, but I was really hoping to see more polished versions, although I guess that's what the workshop support is for. I was wishing that I got more out of the characters in the lore, to be honest. What is clear is that in-game you're on the Isolode and that you're from the Anacrusis, but your position is never revealed directly and your goals seem kind of abstract. Lots and lots of what I know about the characters is speculative, sadly, and I was hoping for more interactions between characters due to the writer of Left 4 Dead 2 being involved, which is one of the most well-written games of all time. Over 1.3 playthroughs of the available content, we suspect that the characters we play are investigating another ship for some reason. Nessa might have been the captain of the Anacrusis, Liu is likely a lower member of the crew, Lance seems a little more than a rich passenger, and Guion is largely a mystery, but seems to have most of the technical knowledge. It's also sort of implied in some dialogue that this isn't their first encounter with aliens, so there's potential the first campaign isn't the first tour for these 4 chronologically. I guess I should be happy there's something to speculate about here, but I find myself just wanting to know more about the characters as I play. That said, I am beyond happy that it doesn't have Back 4 Blood levels of one-liners, and I am beyond depressed that is now such a glowing positive for me. Overall, the character designs look great, although the choice of having a white guy in a suit sort of casts them in the shadow of Nick from Left 4 Dead 2, which sort of has adverse effects.
Okay, I love goo grenades as much as the next guy, but I should probably,
lost.
So true, Nick, so true.
Yeah, me too. Nick.
Dude, that guy's fearless.
Another quick bonus I wanted to give Stray Bombay, which should give you hope as a consumer, is that all characters and special aliens have a very clear silhouette to help you distinguish them at range, which is often cited as one of the primary reasons for the success of Valve's titles like Team Fortress 2 and Left 4 Dead. Of course, this alone doesn't make the game very good, but it was really promising for me to see that they put in the work for something so significant. I also think it's important to say as a negative that while I played, it was difficult to determine the characters' personalities and those archetypes. Now, firstly, it isn't bad for characters to break away from an archetype and do something entirely unique, but the fact that we couldn't connect them to any existing character stereotype was a little disappointing, as I wanted to know more about these characters and imagine how they'd react in certain situations. And finally, before moving on, we should mention the respawn system, which is one of the few things I found the game didn't do well at all. When someone dies for good in game, any player can bring them back at the cost of calling a horde. Not only does this feel like a sort of patchwork solution to people dying, but the reviving only requires one player to hold H, which means someone who isn't communicating or paying attention can cause massive damage to the team. I think reviving would work better as a checkpoint reward like in Left 4 Dead, or if it required an in-game location and the consent of the majority of living players to initiate, example being 2 yes and 1 no. The Anacrusis has 5 special aliens you'll encounter through the game, each with a slightly different purpose. The Brute is a big, aggressive enemy which tries to punch the players and lunge onto them. They also have a very high health pool and require coordination to kill quickly, as most of the team needs to be shooting them. While a Brute is extremely powerful and mobile, you can actually read their movements accurately after a while, making the special infected actually really fun to fight. He's up top, I think.
No, he's right here, he's right here.
Nice, he's dead.
Dead.
Right, yeah, I think as long as we stay in this valley. The spawner is an enemy which hides out of action and continuously spawns these ball things that sort of pop out into snakes and spit acid on you and your teammates. This special can be insanely dangerous if not dealt with quickly, and I personally think that the number of snakes they spawn with each wave is a little too high. Regardless, I think this is a good special from a mechanical view, and that it encourages a dynamic playstyle where you have to move as a unit or decide to send somebody out to kill it. The Flasher is a unique enemy that I actually really like. The whole gimmick is that it bathes the entire visible level in a harsh orange glow until you kill the special. I hear a lot of people are upset by this enemy, but I didn't find it too difficult to control, as you can tell by the intensity of the light and the gentle silhouette of his horns where the Flasher is. It's possible to play without killing the Flasher, but in conjunction with other specials it can easily become deadly. One issue I had with the Flasher is that you can't mark them with your middle click, which I think should be integrated, as an observant player could do this to help more inept teammates and would add more value to builds centered around special marking. The Gooper stays far away and lobs goop at player characters in a projectile arc that drops a pile of it on the ground to slow players. It's kind of an annoying enemy to fight, but can be countered pretty easily by strafing side to side. The speed of attack on the Gooper, however, is really obnoxious and can easily overwhelm a team with very little downtime between shots. I like the fact that you can shoot the goo off teammates, but I personally feel that the attack speed of the Gooper should be slower. Also, just for fun, I thought I would mention that while I was playing, I thought the spamming left mouse button would free me from the goo, which I found to be enjoyable if a little detached from the general idea of the 4-player co-op shooter. So I feel like integrating a very slow overtime breakout for goo might be a good change if your character was guaranteed at least some damage. Finally, the Grabber is the last special alien on the list and by far my least favorite. It fills a similar niche as the Smoker from Left 4 Dead, but the animation is instant and the enemy has some issues involving sound, which I'll discuss in the next section. The Grabber has no wind-up animation or visual tell that you'll be grabbed, and it's inconsistent as to whether or not hiding behind it or on its sides will protect you. One of the biggest issues with the Grabber, however, is its range, which is extremely difficult to gauge. This might be down to bugs with the early access, but it absolutely needs more work to telegraphing and being able to counter it. One of the reasons the Smoker was such a fair enemy to fight in Left 4 Dead was that its ability to pull survivors off high objects and separate them from the pack was its slow pulling speed, relatively low damage, very noticeable audio and visual clues, and the fact that a very skilled player could actually counter the Smoker by cutting the tongue with a sharp melee weapon. This always made the encounters feel interesting and allowed skilled players to feel like they still had a chance even in extremely unfavorable scenarios. The Anacrusis has a great atmosphere. The sounds of a creaking and collapsing ship are noticeable and intriguing in the few moments where it isn't loud with screams of the damned and gunfire. The music, however, is phenomenal. The tracks are mostly all engaging and fit the aesthetic perfectly, slightly adding to the campy theme of the game. This, by the way, is a plus in my opinion. Some of my favorite themes from the game came from the first episode, such as during the flower run and the disco scene.
Goo. Okay, I think the goo is gone.
Yeah,
Holy
I was
shit!
about to say the same
Sentry
thing.
going up!
Yeah, the goo is flammable, enemy and friendly.
I didn't know.
Stick together.
It's like falling apart. Uh-oh.
Break it down, Ryan.
Holy shit!
Root!
Spawner.
You made the right choice, John.
Spawner!
You know I only make right choices.
The sound design for Guns and Aliens is simply okay, with it being serviceable for now, but lots of the special alien sounds and audio cues were difficult to hear in the action-packed scenes. I don't have a lot of background involving audio mixing or design, so I can't say much more than that, but everything works just about right for now. Not only was the Anacrusis fun, but it was memorable. I had a lot of fun playing the Anacrusis, and I found that really interesting. As I expose myself to more games over time, I find less of them spark the sense of pure intrigue that Team Fortress did years ago. And while I wouldn't say the Anacrusis quite lives up to how much fun I had playing Portal, I would say that it had me enjoying the experience at almost every turn, and that isn't something I find too often anymore. I've talked about a lot of problems and a lot of good features in the game currently, and I'm sure as soon as I render this video I'll have thought about a dozen more points for either side, but the bottom line is that if you liked Left 4 Dead, you might actually like the Anacrusis. The aesthetic keeps it from feeling like a stale copy, the perk system constantly changes the player motivations, and the music had me grooving. The Anacrusis doesn't feel like the future marketing case study that Back 4 Blood will inevitably become. I would recommend you buy the game if you have money to spare to support the developers who plan to integrate the Steam Workshop, continue to tell the story, polish weapons, bugs, and animations, and much more over the next year. And that's it. I really did have fun playing and writing about the Anacrusis, and I hope you had fun hearing about it too. If you enjoyed this review, consider supporting me by commenting your thoughts and sharing the video, and consider supporting Stray Bombay by buying the game. I've got a good feeling about this one.
Up on your feet.
Guys, I'm gonna go nab these shield nades real quick.
I like this.
Hello.
I wasn't expecting that at all.